Norigami, Season 1. At the start of Norigami, we're shown a girl in school being bullied by her classmates. After reaching her breaking point, she prays to God to help her. Yato hears her request and decides to help her by defeating the phantom looming over the school. He jumps into battle and Tomine transforms into a dagger that Yato uses to easily dispatch the phantom. Once the fight ends, Tomine tells Yato that she doesn't want to be his regalia anymore because she is tired of living Yato's poor lifestyle. Yato relieves her of her duties and she happily runs off. Later, Yato receives a job about finding a missing cat named My Lord, so he goes off to look for it. He eventually finds the cat and runs across the street to catch it, but suddenly, Hiyori pushes Yato to save him from a bus that was about to hit him. After scolding Yato for carelessly running into the street, he points out that she was actually hit by the bus and her body was laying in the street. Hiyori wakes up in a hospital bed with only a few scratches. To her surprise, nobody but her seems to have noticed that Yato was in the street with her when she was hit. When Hiyori returns to school, we see that Hiyori now suffers from sudden attacks of drowsiness. On the way home, she sees a missing cat poster about My Lord, and so she decides to try to find it in the hopes that it would help her remember what happened when she was hit by the bus. Yato finally finds the cat, but is attacked by phantoms. Hiyori appears, attempting to save him once again, but Yato grabs her and escapes. Yato points out her tail and the fact that she is separated from her body, which causes her to slip back into it. The next time they meet, he explains that she is stuck between the near shore and the far shore, which would be the living world and the afterlife, respectively. This makes Hiyori partially living, but also part phantom. Hiyori asks Yato to fix her, and he accepts the task of helping her return to normal in exchange for 5 yen. As a normal life becomes difficult for Hiyori, she begins to press Yato to help her after 2 weeks of stalling. Yato explains that he can't help her without first finding a new regalia, which is a spirit that becomes a god's weapon. So Hiyori decides to go find him a regalia herself. After searching all day, she calls Yato to show him the regalia that she finally found. It turns out to be a normal phantom that attacks both of them. While running away from the phantom, Yato spots the spirit of a young boy and decides that he would be a suitable regalia. Yato forms a pact with the spirit, giving him 2 names, Yukine and Regalia Seki. With his new regalia, Yato is able to easily defeat the phantom. Once the battle ends, Yato introduces Yukine to Hiyori and realizes the boy has a bit of an attitude. After Yukine experiences Yato's impoverished lifestyle, he begins to doubt him. Hiyori invites the 2 of them to lunch in the hopes that she can finally get Yato to solve her problem. While talking to Hiyori after lunch, Yukine has a dirty thought about her, which causes a stinging backlash on Yato. Yato explains that regalias and gods share mind and body, so he's subjected to all of Yukine's bad thoughts. Then, Yato receives a call for a job, but when he arrives, he learns it was actually the god Tenjin who called him there. He's surprised to learn that Tomine now works for Tenjin under the new name Mayu. Tenjin, being one of the popular gods, is busy granting wishes, so he wants Yato to take care of some phantoms for him. After an argument with Yato, Hiyori goes off to deal with the phantoms on her own, but is quickly overwhelmed. Yato saves her and then finds their true target trying to push a student into suicide by train. The phantom is defeated just in time, saving the student's life. Sometime later, Yato takes Hiyori and Yukine to visit his friends, the goddess Kofuku and her regalia Daikoku. Kofuku warns Yukine and Hiyori to be careful with Yato because despite his appearance, he is a scary god. Immediately after, Yato gets a call for some work and the trio leave. When they arrive, they meet a man who's on a streak of horrible luck and has given up on life. Yato eventually realizes that the reason for this man's horrible luck is Kofuku, and he explains to the group that she is actually the god of poverty. So he severs the man's ties with Kofuku and then returns to her place. Daikoku pays them for cleaning up his master's mess, and Yato begins to leave with Yukine. However, Hiyori hangs back to ask if it's true that Yato is a scary god. Kofuku tells her that Yato is a war god and a long time ago he killed people and a regalia. In the past, minor gods like Yato had to take on any job that came to them just so they wouldn't be forgotten, which led to many dark jobs. When Hiyori finally catches up with Yato, he tells her to go to Kofuku and Daikoku if anything ever happens to him. Meanwhile, a young girl appears to Yukine that has kanji written all over her arms and legs. The girl is revealed to be a regalia that Yato calls Nora, and before disappearing, she encourages him to call her whenever he needs her. When we next see our trio, Yato is teaching Yukine how to create a borderline, which creates a border that phantoms can't cross and also can serve as a weapon for regalias. Afterwards, Hiyori decides it would be best if Yukine stayed with her since Yato can't provide the boy with food or shelter. That night, Yukine shows his jealousy over Nora and questions if Yato even needs him at all. While at the mall with Hiyori, Yukine gets into an argument with her and runs off. Later, he finds the spirit of a little girl and tries to save her from the phantoms trying to corrupt her. Unfortunately, he is too late and the little girl transforms into a phantom. Yato arrives, and despite Yukine's hesitations, they kill the phantom. A few days later, Yukine's frustrations with Yato have grown and he's continuing to give in to his negative desires by stealing a skateboard. They're suddenly attacked by the war god Bishamon, who we learn has been trying to kill Yato for a long time. Yato explains that Bishamon is the strongest war god and has many regalias. During the battle, Yato is forced onto the defensive because he's not fighting at 100% due to the blight affecting him from Yukine's misbehavior. Meanwhile, Hiyori goes to Kofuku for help and convinces her to go there and stop the fight. Kofuku arrives and opens a vent, releasing many phantoms from the underworld. It was enough to get Bishamon to withdraw and allow Yato to escape. After the fight, Yato tries to cleanse the blight from his neck, but fails. Just as he contemplates whether his partnership with Yukine is going to work, Nora appears and reminds him that he can always use her instead. 3 days after the fight with Bishamon, Yukine runs away to try to become Tenjin's regalia. Tenjin explains that if he made Yukine his regalia, it would make him a Nora. Noras are regalia with many masters, and being one is looked down upon because they are seen as untrustworthy. While Hiyori is looking for Yukine, she runs into Bishamon's regalia Kazuma. He warns her to keep her head down around Bishamon, but also that Yukine must be dealt with. If Yukine continues his bad behavior, the blight will kill Yato. When Yato and Hiyori find Yukine, Nora is with him trying to further strain his relationship with Yato, but he tells Yukine not to listen to anything Nora says. Yato transforms Yukine into Seki and goes to slay a phantom in the area. The fight is tougher than expected because Yukine is growing dull as a sword and the blight is also taking its toll on Yato. Still, Yato is determined to use Yukine as his regalia, and the two finally manage to kill the phantom. Following those events, Yato takes on a job at Hiyori's school where he has to help a boy deal with his bullies. While at the school, Yukine's emotions hit their breaking point when seeing the life he is no longer able to have. In a violent outburst, he begins smashing windows in the school with a baseball bat. This causes Yato to collapse from the pain of the growing blight corrupting his body. Hiyori and Yukine take Yato to Kofuku's place, but are surprised when they don't receive a warm welcome. Daikoku lets Hiyori through the border and explains that Yato's condition is too severe and he won't last long. The only way to save him is to perform a ritual for expelling blight called an ablution, which requires 3 regalia to complete. Daikoku goes to gather regalia for the ablution, but the only one willing to help is Yato's former regalia, Mayu, due to the risk involved in the ritual. When Hiyori learns this, she goes to find the last regalia herself and manages to get Kazuma to come back with her and help. The ablution begins, and it requires Yukine to confess his sins or he will become a phantom. Despite Yukine's efforts to fight against it, he finally confessed and the ablution was a success. After a few days, Yato goes to ask Tenjin for help in solving Hiyori's problem since she's helped him so many times now. Tenjin advises him to cut her ties with him as a test, but he's reluctant to do it. Later that night, Yato and Yukine are ambushed by phantoms while on their way to meet up with Hiyori for the New Year festival. Behind the scenes, a mysterious person seems to be the cause of this phantom attack. Meanwhile, Hiyori is attacked by Nora, who is commanding strange masked phantoms. After the masked phantoms disappear, Nora warns Hiyori that a god of calamity named Rabo has awoken and he intends to kill Yato. Yato and Yukine finally defeat the phantoms they were dealing with and go to catch up with Hiyori. Shockingly, when they find her, she doesn't recognize Yato anymore, but she seems to remember everything else. As the story picks back up, we see Rabo reminiscing about the past, revealing that he and Yato used to kill people together. In the present, Rabo and Nora are slaughtering people in town. Yato grows frustrated as all of his attempts to jog Hiyori's memory have failed. Eventually, he runs into Rabo and Nora where he learns they were behind Hiyori's memory loss. Rabo and Yato begin to fight, but Rabo clearly has the upper hand. He wants Yato to return to his dark self from the past, believing Yato to be weak in his current state. Rabo stops the fight in disappointment, and Nora tells Yato that she will only return Hiyori's memories if he defeats Rabo. After the fight, Yato goes to see Tenjin, and he convinces Yato that not returning Hiyori's memories is what's best for her. But when Yato is later approached by Nora, she tells him that all of Hiyori's memories will soon fade away, leaving her as an empty husk. Meanwhile, Yukine attempts to jog Hiyori's memory by himself, but she suddenly forgets who he is. With new resolve, Yato and Yukine promise to Hiyori that they will get her memories back. They arrive at Rabo's shrine, but unfortunately, Hiyori managed to tag along with them. The fight begins, and once again, Yato and Yukine are outmatched. Rabo realizes that the only way to motivate Yato into becoming his old self is to hurt Hiyori. So he destroys the container holding Hiyori's memories, causing her to fall unconscious. Yato's anger pushes him to somewhat revert to his old self, and he begins to overpower Rabo. In order to even the playing field, Rabo absorbs phantoms into his own body to make himself stronger. Amidst the chaos, Yato has to save Hiyori from the debris and ends up taking the brunt of Rabo's attack. While they're under the rubble, Yato's unique scent triggers Hiyori's memories and she returns back to normal. Finally, Yato manages to defeat Rabo and the fight ends. Afterwards, Yato tells Hiyori that the only way she can truly live a happy life is to cut ties with him and Yukine. But she refuses and declares that she wants to continue living her life with them.